Good morning. Our opening words this morning are the words of Charles Flagg. We are one. One with each other and one with all animate and inanimate matter, the stuff of the universe, the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen, the tangible and the intangible, with the wondrous and the less than wondrous, with all the beginnings and endings and carrying on. We pray that in this brief time together, our light may be brightened, our vision extended, and our love deepened as we feel ourselves truly one with all that is.
Once again, good morning. My name is Nikki Willard, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Huntington's Sunday service. If you'd like to learn more on behalf of the fellowship, we are streaming live from our sanctuary in Huntington and virtually on Zoom and Facebook Live. I welcome you all this morning, those who are here in the sanctuary, as well as those joining virtually. For those of you joining us on Zoom, please feel free to use the chat box to say hello to your fellow Zoomers. On behalf of the fellowship, I would like to extend a special welcome today to visitors joining us for the first time here in person or virtually, as well as any newcomers who are returning. If you would like to learn more about us, feel free to speak with someone after the service if you are here, or let us know in the chat on Zoom, or email us at office@uufh.org. Know that whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. Of course, I have a few brief announcements. I think, as we all know, according to COVID Act Now and the CDC, the community risk level for transmission of COVID-19 virus continues to be high. As a result, we will continue the suspension of our mask-optional eating and drinking in the social hall after the service, as masks continue to be required throughout the building. When weather permits, and I think today it will permit, mask-optional, well, we won't have coffee, but we might have something to drink, but certainly conversation can take place outside the social hall on the patio in the Sam Phillips Garden. We appreciate your cooperation with these changes and hope, along with you, that the spread of the virus will decrease soon. Having trouble hearing on Sunday mornings, we have updated our assistive listening system. A new transmitter has been installed, and you can pick up a new receiver on the table in the gallery. Try it out. Interested in small group ministry? We have two continuing groups, Wellspring and Touchstones. What is small group ministry? It is intentional, lay-led small groups that deepen and expand the ministry of a congregation. And now, there's also going to be a third new small group ministry starting. It's called Creativity Matters, and it's open to anyone from 10 to 110, and is about unlocking your creativity as a spiritual practice. I believe that begins in the fall. I think they all do. For much more information about these announcements, as well as other activities at the fellowship, please see our e-newsletter, The Flash. And if you are not currently receiving The Flash, you can sign up for it at our website, UUFH.org, by clicking the tab Sign Up for Events and News on the home page. And now, I'd like to take a moment to welcome Reverend Alison Cornish back to the UUFH pulpit. As many of you know, Alison was our intern minister, that's a minister in training, with us during the 2001-2002 fellowship year when Reverend Beth Graham was our minister. I was very fortunate to be a member of her internship committee. We were supposed to be there to guide her, but she really guided us. So here is some more information about Alison that most of us don't know. She is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist. Alison spent the first half of her professional life working as a historic preservationist and architectural historian, primarily in New England and on Long Island. After 20 years, Alison felt a call to the ministry and attended Andover Newton Theological School. After graduation and ordination, and while serving both the UU congregation in Bridgehampton and what was then the UU Bellport congregation, she also began studies with the Buddhist teacher Joanna Macy, delved deeper into the work of eco-theologian Thomas Berry, and became a Green Faith Fellow. Alison organized and hosted a half-day conference of faith communities and environmental organizations in the wake of Superstorm Sandy, which propelled her to see where her work was headed, out of the congregation per se, and into interfaith and community venues. In 2013, Alison and her husband Pat moved to Philadelphia, where she began her work as a community minister, serving in leadership roles at Partners for Sacred Places, initiatives at Interfaith Philadelphia, and executive director of Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light, and was the affiliated community minister at First Unitarian Church, Philadelphia, many of these at the same time. Alison and Pat relocated to Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts in 2020 to be closer to family and friends and to pursue new avenues of work related to care of the environment. She currently is a program consultant with the BTS Learning Center, a nonprofit organization located in Portland, Maine, that provides continuing education for clergy and lay leaders preparing to serve in a climate-changed world. When not working, Alison can be found on and in a local natural body of water, currently the Deerfield River. Again, welcome, Alison. And now, I invite you to settle into your bodies and quiet your minds as we breathe deep together and settle into our time of worship. Please join me in saying the mission statement. The words are on the screen. In religious community, we nurture our individual spirits through caring for one another and helping to heal the world. Please join me in singing our affirmation, Common Ground.
Our words for lighting the chalice, the sign of our liberal religious tradition, are this morning from Joan Borisenko. And I offer these words in honor of the James Webb Space Telescope that is finally sending us amazing pictures. Once upon a time, love erupted with a mighty roar, a ball of living, breathing light exploded into a universe of fire and ice, sun and moons, plants and animals, you and me. Since that first moment, love has known itself and expanded itself through us. We can rejoice in our divine birthright as children of love's first light. Our story, our reading this morning, is a poem tale from Lenore Jackson. I'm going to read it first, and I'm going to invite, if you're comfortable, for you to just rest in your breath, perhaps even close your eyes, and call to mind images as I read this poem tale. After I read it through once, Nikki's going to read it through the second time, and we'll offer some real images to go along with the reading. But first, have the experience all to yourself, in a time made out of twilight. In a time made out of twilight, there was a land where the mountains pierced the sky. And beyond the mountains, a river flowed through silver willows, passing meadows with scarlet poppies, fields of gold, and copper forests, until at last it fell into the sea. And in that sea there was an island where the pine trees touched the clouds, and ravens called from tree to tree and looked down on a dragonfly gliding over bracken. And under the bracken there was an acorn. And deep inside that acorn there stood a gnarled oak tree. And in the shadow of that oak tree, a young man kissed a maiden, and deep inside that young man's eyes was a little baby girl. And in that baby's laughter was a wrinkled, white-haired woman who lived in a copper forest beyond the silver willows and gathered scarlet poppies and put them in a basket where she kept a golden ring and pearl beyond compare. And in that gnarled, white-haired woman threw that pearl into the sky, and it hung there like a moon in a time made out of twilight.
And now some actual images as I read it through again. In a time made out of twilight, there was a land where the mountains pierced the sky, and beyond the mountains, a river flowed through silver willows, passing meadows, and scarlet poppies, fields of gold and copper forests, until at last it fell into the sea. And in that sea there was an island where the pine trees touched the clouds and ravens called from tree to tree and looked down on a dragonfly gliding over bracken. And under the bracken there was an acorn, and deep inside that acorn there stood a gnarled oak tree. And in the shadow of that oak tree, a young man kissed a maiden. And deep inside that young man's eyes was a little baby girl. And in that baby's laughter was a wrinkled, white-haired woman who lived in a copper forest beyond the silver willows and gathered scarlet poppies and put them in a basket where she kept a golden ring and a pearl beyond compare. And that gnarled, white-haired woman threw that pearl into the sky, and it hung there like a moon in a time made out of twilight. I invite us all to sing Spirit of Life. Following the joys and concerns, we'll enter into a time of silence and then prayer. Join with me in singing now. I would read some joys and concerns given to me before the service, but I have not received any. And in the Zoom chat, there are a couple of messages for Alison, actually, a couple of old friends of hers that I will, not old, but longtime friends of hers, who I will share with her, and I'm sure she will appreciate later. So now we will enter into a time of silence and then prayer. As you participate, please remember that it's not about the perfection of silence, but the intention.
Please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life and spirit of love that comes to us in such a still, small voice. Whisper into our ears something that will reassure us that life is precious, held like a pearl that turns into the mountain in the sky. Give to us the courage to wake up in the morning and read and listen to the news of the world. Strengthen us as we face days that feel so long, some days, that we can hardly believe it's still the same day. Nurture our spirits so that we can look one another in the eye and say, I see you, I hear you, I am with you. Oh, Spirit of life, in that still small voice, we long to be made whole. We long to be with you and you with us. Dear, dear Spirit of life, come unto us and be with us always and forever. Blessed be, and amen.
While we are still here in the mode of prayer and meditation, I think I am going to read those two chat messages because the chat may not be saved, and I think it's important that Alison hear it and us as well. And one is from Elizabeth Fries. Delighted to be here with you all. I'm a UU now living in California. As a member of South Church in Portsmouth, New Hampshire in the 1980s, I met Alison Cornish. She generously agreed to be godmother to our twin sons, Nathaniel and Nicholas, born in 1988. She co-officiated with a Hindu priest at Nick's wedding in New Jersey in 2017. And another one is from Cricket Hunter. I'm a Zoom visitor here to hear Alison preach and grateful for the opportunity. Thanks, UUFH. And There's a Catherine Hovde, honored to be here, sending best wishes. And that's it. So I'm glad I shared those. So now we will have the split plate. For July and August, our offering will be shared with the Grow to Give Garden. This summer, UUFH's own Grow to Give Garden is celebrating its 10th year of growing organic vegetables and fruit, all of which is donated to local food pantries such as Long Island Cares. The garden relies on its budget to supplement donations of tools, seed, compost, and routine upkeep and maintenance. This year, the Grow to Give Garden volunteers are expanding their focus to give back to Mother Nature by eliminating invasive weeds and introducing native plants that will provide food for the birds, the bees, and our honeybees, and other pollinator insects. Help us create a more ecologically healthy and sustainable garden. You can send a check to the office or donate through the website as seen on your screen. You can also donate through the Give Plus Church app, which can be found on the App Store or Google Play. Those of you here in the main hall with us can also place your donation in the basket that will be passed around during the offertory. Thank you, Nina. That was wonderful. Alison invited me to go through Reverend Kenneth Collier's The Interdependent Web of All Existence and share some passages that would resonate with this congregation. Most of us know our seventh principle, which reads, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. As some background, Reverend Collier was part of a group back in 1984 that insisted on adding something to our principles about the interdependence of all. We got the idea, Collier writes, from thinking about biology, especially ecology. Every creature and every species depends on every other for its existence, so that the elimination of a species necessarily weakens the environment and endangers the existence of all the remaining species, ours included. It is a law as inexorable as gravity. He speaks about the interdependence of humans in relation to the world around us, but he speaks much more specifically about human interdependence and interactions with each other. So here are a few quotes from his work that I'd like to share with you today. We are interconnected, interdependent. This is simply so, as true religiously and spiritually as it is biologically. Since it is true, the minute we forget it and try to live as if we are autonomous units, looking after our own without concern for how our lives affect the lives of others, we lose sight of any chance to bring genuine meaning and joy and even love into our living. Do you want to stop the drug trade? Then give the addict the same level of respect that you expect from the addict, and work to make life without drugs more attractive than life addicted. Begin by making schools work. Begin by making it possible for poor parents to take meaningful jobs. Begin by supporting clean, bright, safe, and loving daycare. Begin by working for safe and humane prisons. Begin by affirming the lives of those who frighten you and threaten you and make you afraid. As my friend and colleague Terry Sweetser once remarked, the best defense is a strong affirmation. What goes around comes around. Do you see how powerful this idea of interdependence is? It has to do with justifying ecological action, to be sure, but it is far more than that. It is also about how we live our lives and treat each other and conceive of our communities. It is about how we are woven into life's web. It is also about how biology becomes a metaphor for the depth of life, where meaning and fulfillment and love dwell. It is loving our neighbors as ourselves and loving our enemies. It is sowing the seeds of joy and happiness. It is dispelling hatred with love. If what goes around comes around, doesn't it make sense for us to send love around? Love and help and generosity and kindness and understanding, and a gently healing and helping hand? That's what I want to come around to me, so that is what I try to send around.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you. together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, sing with love and a will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it'll turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
I want to thank Nikki for the warm introduction, and for everyone who's worked behind the scenes, Jim and Deb and David, to make sure that all things tech work this morning. It's just been such a joy to work together with this team, and thank you, Nina and Isabella, for your music as well. This spring, I lost a dear friend, though lost really isn't the right word here. My beloved friend was a 150-year-old maple tree who grew alongside our yard just to one side of our house and was cut down by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation in the course of making way for upgrades to the town's waste and water lines and to create some new sidewalks. So the tree was not lost, but nonetheless is gone. My friend was a real beauty, at least twice as high as our house and nearly as wide, with a leafy crown home to generations of birds and squirrels and chipmunks and countless species of insects. The tree shaded our home as well as passersby and was healthy and robust, maybe even in the prime of life. And each August, wild and intricate fungi made a home in a hollow of the trunk, something people all over knew about and watched for as a sign of turning the season. In the winter, the bare branches framed patches of a watery blue sky like the seen through a leaded glass window. Our neighbor Jan and I opposed the plan to cut down the tree. We wrote letters, we went to meetings, and pleaded with officials. To no avail. We lost. And early one spring morning, a tree service contracted to remove, another euphemism, the tree arrived. I watched. I witnessed for 5 hours as the tree was dismembered, as each ancient branch gracefully upturned into twig and bud thudded to the ground, actually shaking the house. I watched and I wept. Since that spring day, I have reflected on why this particular death has moved me, shaken me to my core. Why, I've thought, when the world is teeming with violence, is awash in death and destruction, why weep over a single tree? When the Amazon rainforest is burning, the oceans acidifying, rivers drying up, species are going extinct, and the glaciers are melting, why? Why grieve an individual, not even that unique a specimen tree? I wondered, is this tree perhaps a symbol for all of that? Is the tree a stand-in for the ginormous and cataclysmic endings happening all the time and everywhere, which we cannot absorb or take in or process, never mind find in ourselves to mourn? Perhaps, I thought, this is why. Or maybe it was our unsuccessful effort to save the tree, which was essentially a debate between different worldviews. On the one hand, there was the municipality, anxious to achieve its goals and objectives as efficiently and cost-effectively as possible, who saw the tree simply as an obstacle to progress toward what they understand as the good, to improve the quality of human lives. On the other hand, there's the worldview which Jan and I advocated, where we understood the continued life of the tree as offering a wider good to us and for us humans, and for others too. We need trees to sequester the ballooning carbon emissions we humans make. We argued, and we benefit from the cooling effect of trees when they provide shade and transpiration, reducing the need for air conditioning, which is, by the way, another contributor to greenhouse gases. Trees host all manner of species, providing biodiversity, and together with other plants and features of the landscape, they create important microclimates. These are goods, I argued, that must be taken into consideration whenever the cutting down of a mature tree is considered. So, maybe I was carrying my failure to win the debate, still upset by my inability to convince others that there are other ways to understand the common good. Perhaps, I thought, this is the why. But somehow neither the stand-in symbol explanation nor the two different worldviews debate could explain the depth of sadness I experienced and feel still. What the heck is going on? What I'm coming to, where I'm arriving with a not-so-subtle aha moment, is that through my relationship with tree, I experienced nothing short of an awakening to the confluence, to the alignment of the myriad ways of knowing and experiencing the world, through science, with indigenous wisdom, by religion, and even as authentic justice, albeit in this case I would say justice was denied, but a little more on that later. In this most tender, intimate relationship with tree, it dawned on me, all those ways of knowing and experiencing the world, they were all deeply interwoven with one another, and all of them bound tree with me, one to the other. What I felt, in fact, was the real embodied experience of interdependence, the heart of our seventh principle that Nikki read about earlier in our time together. And I have even given this aha moment an acronymic name, G-E-E, yeah, that's how it's spelled, with an exclamation point. It's okay to laugh, go ahead. which stands for the grand explanation of everything. Gee, in sum, in my relationship with Tree, I sensed, I saw, all that I have come to believe and hold fast come to life. Wait a minute, I can hear you saying inside you, slow down, what happened here? How'd you get there? Please, please, I hear you saying, start at the beginning, and I will. But first, take a breath. Just breathe for a minute. Pay attention to the in and out of breathing for you, for us, here, together, in this moment. Because it all starts, everything actually starts with the breath. In the words of Rabbi Arthur Waskow, we breathe in oxygen that trees breathe out. The trees breathe in carbon dioxide that we breathe out. We breathe each other into life. This is a scientific fact. It is observable, provable, and incontrovertible. In Ken Collier's words we heard earlier, every creature and every species depends on every other for its existence. It is a law as inexorable as gravity. And, he writes, the elimination of a species necessarily weakens an environment and endangers the existence of all the remaining species. Not speculative. This is as true as truth can be. We breathe each other into life. This is how the indigenous peoples, those humans who have lived and breathed right here on this earth for eons, understand life as reciprocity. Each of us gives of our uniqueness, says Robin Wall Kimmerer, author of Braiding Sweetgrass, which allows life to be lived from an abundance of gifts. We give, each of us, of that which we have been gifted. We are uniquely valuable. Without trees, collectively and individually, this ongoing exchange, our waste product, our gift, their in-breath, their waste product, their gift, our in-breath. Without this, the world ceases to be, because this is how the world is constituted and reconstituted day in, day out, breath by breath. This is reciprocity. This is mutuality. This is balance. This is life. We breathe each other into life. And this is also a spiritual reality, because it illuminates the fallacy of separateness, that we are in any way alone. We are simply not self-contained or self-made. In the words Nikki read, the minute we forget and try to live as if we are autonomous units looking after our own without concern for how our lives affect the lives of others, we lose sight of any chance to bring genuine meaning and joy and even love into our living. We are intimately, integrally a part of one another. The poet Rabindranath Tagore said it this way: the same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world. It runs through humans and rivers and trees and mountains and winds and the oceans. It is the golden thread of aliveness. It makes up the web that binds us together. It forms our connections, and it informs our dependencies. We breathe each other into life. And this this truth, this reality that we are part of one another, calls for fairness, the basis of justice for all. It was an exchange that required fair treatment for each being in order to thrive. I breathed, tree lived. Tree breathed, I lived. And it called for the rights of each being to be respected and protected. And it necessitated, I would venture, what all authentic justice requires, the obligation for those with more power, us, to recognize the additional responsibility we have to uphold the worth and the dignity of the other, perhaps especially for those other than human beings whose existence has been so marginalized. We breathe each other into life. In each of these ways of understanding and viewing and navigating the world around us, through science, with indigenous wisdom, by religion, and even as authentic justice, we can see the ways we have failed to live up to the truth of our interconnectedness. It was in 1997, 25 years ago, that Ken Collier wrote the words that Nikki shared. And in that essay, he also wrote, "We are in the midst of a spiritual and cultural crisis occasioned by the fact that we've lost sight of this seventh principle 25 years ago." But if we can clearly see our failings, if we look closely, we will also find clues in each of these approaches for how to be in the world in the best possible ways now and in this time. For given the condition of the world, with the giant countdown clock of existence ticking away, it's not enough to affirm and promote the fact that we're woven into life's webs. We are called to feel in our core how we are woven into it and what meaning that has for each of us, finding and living out our unique place in the web of all life. For life itself now literally depends on us hearing and responding to that call. Each of the strands of G, the grand explanation of everything, has its own voice, and we will each hear the voice that speaks directly to us. Those of us who find resonance with a scientific view, especially the principle of ecology, that no living thing exists in isolation, will perhaps hear a call to defend and protect as much biodiversity as possible. For those drawn to an indigenous way of knowing the world, the call may be to allyship and solidarity with Native peoples who are still here with a capital S and a capital H, who strive to continue to exist, to be seen, to be heard, and perhaps to offer their wisdom. As spiritual beings, we are called to live from a sense of gratitude, to celebrate our connectedness, and to commit ourselves to living in right relationship with one another and with the world around us. And nothing can exist without a resounding call to justice at the center of our concern. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. In the end, it really doesn't matter which strand we follow, which call we hear, but follow we must and respond in kind, because this is how we belong to the world, through all these experiences of interconnectedness. It doesn't matter which strand we see as ours, because when it comes to it, they all lead to the same place. We belong to each other. We depend on one another, and knowing this, believing this, feeling this, acting on this is life. And when all these strands are woven strong together, then we are collectively moving toward the future we so long for, which is grounded in truth and embraces diversity and seeks in hope a viable, livable world for all beings. I so love these words of Harvey Sindema, which seem to magnify our own seventh principle. He writes, "We live in the web of life in reciprocity with people, with other creatures, and the earth, recognizing that they are a part of us and we are a part of them. It is lived interdependence, not an abstraction, not a symbol, not a metaphor, not a worldview, not an argument or a debate, not even a principle, but an actuality and a necessity." And when we allow ourselves to live this interdependence fully, day in and day out, what might we feel in our depths? Connection? Belonging? Mutuality? What then? What will we experience? Again, in the words of Robin Wall Kimmerer, this is what might happen. Knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond. Yes, this is what I felt with Tree. I don't know how or why, but I felt loved by that tree, at least as much as I loved. Yes, we breathed each other into life. Yes, there were all the ways I knew and celebrated our interdependence scientifically and in reciprocity, but this is what made the difference. There was a sacredness to our bond. It was infused with mutual love. And that is the final and essential strand of the tapestry. Tree brought love. And that has made all the difference. We breathed each other into life, but more, we loved each other into life. And so that love, that has changed everything. Everything. Blessed be, and amen.
As we play our final song today, I ask in the spirit of Reverend Deborah that we all stand, rise, move, and dance as we are able.
Gonna keep on trying till I reach the highest ground. Oh, yeah. Teachers, keep on teaching. And preachers, keep on preaching. World, keep on turning, 'cause it won't be too long. And lovers, oh yeah, keep on loving. And believers, keep on believing. Sleepers, just stop sleeping, 'cause it won't be too long. I'm so glad that he let me try it again. Last time on earth I lived the world of sin. I'm so glad that I know more than I knew then. I'm gonna keep on trying till I reach my highest ground. No one's gonna bring me down. Nobody till I reach my highest ground. No one's gonna keep me down till I reach my highest ground. I said no one's gonna bring me down. No one's gonna, nobody, yeah. Till I reach the highest ground. Somebody feel good? Gonna bring them up with you all the way to the highest ground.
Thank you. Playing for change. Please stand as I say these words for extinguishing the chalice. And Nikki extinguishes the chalice. The words by Elizabeth Sella Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Blessed be, go in peace, and dance your heart outs.